Let me hit you with a question. Are you a slow artist or a fast artist? Maybe you're not an artist at all, but honestly, this is just for the people that draw in general. Are you fast or slow? Because for me, I'm right in the middle. I'm not fast, but I'm not necessarily slow either, depending on what I'm working on. So, what if I challenge myself and see how many drawings I can get done in, let's say, about 5 hours? And what if I live stream it? And what if I put characters, popular characters for me to draw? Well, that's exactly what I did. So basically this video is just a rendition of how many characters I'm actually able to get done in 5 hours. So of course when you make a challenge like this, you can't just go in all willy-nilly without a plan. So as I got my live ready, I made a list of what I thought were the best rules I could come up with in the minute. The rules being, I must have a full sketch and base colors. It does not need to be rendered, in which I took that as a form of do not render or else. If I started rendering, I would never be able to move on to another piece. That brings us to our other rule. I couldn't spend more than 30 minutes on one character. That's right, I had to get the anatomy and the base colors down all in 30 minutes. And I'm not talking like, oh, let's just do a half body. I did full anatomy for every single one of these pieces. Was it correct anatomy? Who knows? I just went with the flow. And with that, the last rule I personally added, I was allowed to have 1 or 2 30-minute breaks in the 5 hours that I was drawing. Plot twist, I let my viewers, my awesome, amazing, sweet viewers, dictate when I was able to take a break, if I was even allowed a break at all. And with those rules, I immediately went live. With that being said, these are some clips from my live stream and also the speed paints of said characters I did. I hope you all enjoy, and on with the voiceover. When it comes to Pinkie Pie for this video, I'm not gonna say much because I do plan on doing redesigns for my redesigns because I wasn't entirely happy with some of them. However, she is a part of this video, so with that, I am going to say that I actually started her sketch before stream. She was actually the piece that I was working on when I had the idea for the stream, so while it isn't a full start to finish, it still gave me some troubles, mainly her color palette. I was super stumped when it came to trying to mix colors and what would look best for her, and also trying to incorporate her main colors from the actual show. However, someone in chat did give me the suggestion of adding the flag that I headcanon her to be, and for that, that would be the pansexual flag. Debate me on this if you want, but I truly and wholeheartedly believe that Pinkie Pie, she just loves everybody, which in reality she does love everybody, just maybe not in the sense that you may be thinking. That's why I gave her the pansexual flag for the ruffles on the ends of her shoes. But other than the color palette, she didn't give me much of a hard time. So this is what Pinkie Pie looked like after the timer stopped. The next character people ended up voting for in a poll that I always started in my live stream chat was Sapphire. Now when it came to Sapphire, I had a very clear envision of what I wanted. But when I actually started, her anatomy was a very big time crunch for me. I actually worked on it longer than I should have. It drained a lot of my time, which in reality it didn't matter because I knew that there was going to be a big poofy dress hiding most of her, but just something in my brain was not corresponding to that very well. But when I finally got somewhat of her anatomy down and I was okay with it, I started getting the base colors down, and then my timer went off just before I was getting her skin color down. All in all, it wasn't too bad for 30 minutes, but I do feel like I could have done better. She looked a little bit too tall for me, considering in the show she's actually one of the shortest characters, so it was one of the things that bugged me greatly. After doing Sapphire, of course people wanted Ruby as well. Just a little side note, I ended up putting most of these characters on the list myself, but we're not going to talk about that. I did look up references, and what I found was really difficult was actually finding a decent photo. When I looked her up on Pinterest, what I found very often was it wasn't the Ruby that we know, as in like Ruby for Garnet. It was mainly other Rubies that were shown throughout the show. It was either that or the option of a a super goofy pic. I know you can clearly see which one I went for. I'm not mad at it. I've just never done someone in such a goofy pose before, but in reality, I ended up loving it. I did have a little bit of a hard time with her color palette though, because even though the reference I went for I knew was Ruby, mainly because of the bandana on her head, I think it was more of a younger Ruby, because you know that theory about Steven Universe, you know, the older the gem, the more faded they are. I don't know if you actually know that theory, but it's the theory that I like to go for. So I tried to match her color palette to what I thought it was, so I hope I didn't mess anything up too hard. But Ruby was the one that gave me the least amount of trouble, actually. I finished her before my 30 minutes was even up, so I wasn't really sure what to do with myself. I kept trying to add little details in, like I was missing something, but I wasn't, and it was very strange for me to just sit there for the next few minutes. But this is how her and Sapphire turned out together. Alright, strap in. I have a whole lot to say about Candy Apple Cookie. She is one of my favorite designs from Cookie Run Kingdom. She's not my favorite, however, that title already goes to somebody else. But we're not gonna talk about him today. We're actually gonna talk about her anatomy real quick. This was actually the fastest I think I've ever drawn anybody's anatomy ever, and I was honestly shocked with myself. But besides my surprise, I still had to continue with her color palette and her details. And let me just say, this girl has a bunch of details. I knew that she had some details like the candy apples on her head and her ribbons, but what I didn't realize was she has one thigh-high stocking and devil horns and bat wings. I didn't see those before, so the more I looked at her character trying to get everything down in time, the more that I started to panic because of how much detail actually goes into her design, which honestly, applause, I love it, but also boo, I am on a time limit. Back to how cute she is, I love her so much. However, as I'm looking at her design, I look over at chat and what do you mean she's 17 to 19 years old? What? What do you mean she looks 16 at best? What has happened? Are we looking at the same character? I'm not gonna get too much into the debate about that, but I'm just gonna put my opinion in that she does not look that old. Hold on, wait a second. How old is Candy? That's not how you spell candy. Candy Apple Cookie. Wait. I know this says 19. Candy Apple's canon age is 19. She is... Nope, I'm still not, you cannot tell me that this little girl is supposed to be around my age. What really sucked though is during the time of my challenge, it came to the point that I couldn't get her base colors all the way down, and it kind of frustrated me a little bit because I just kept watching the timer run out. And I had to sit there for a moment, relishing in the fact that I couldn't get down what I wanted. But as the challenge goes, I needed to accept defeat and move on with my day. The next character was Ragatha, which for some reason, a lot of my chat wanted me to draw evil Ragatha, or Ragatha when she was stupid with the stupid sauce. But I decided to just go with regular old Ragatha because that's what I mainly remembered was her regular ragdoll features. Which, to be honest, was really great for me because I just got started on anatomy right away. Not to mention with her being a very cheerful character, a pose that was pretty simple came to mind, so I did that too. I did have to bring out a reference for color picking, but after doing so, I think I got pretty dang far with the anatomy, and I got all the colors down, so... Oh, just don't mind that in the corner. One of my viewers wanted spaghetti, so I had to provide. I had to provide for my fans. I'm sorry. But yeah, there was not really much I needed to say about Ragatha, because she was pretty plain and simple, all things considered. So for those of you still watching, which thank you, I'm glad you made it this far into the video. What I forgot to mention, not really because I did this for a reason, I actually went back to all of these after my stream, after the 5 hours, and render them how I wanted to because, well, I wanted to finish them. So with that being said, here are the rest of the speed paints that I ended up finishing for the characters, and I hope you like them. With Ragatha's touch up, I wanted to mix up colors, kind of experiment with colors a little bit, so there might be some segments that you'll see like some colors where they really shouldn't be, because I'm still working on my color theory, guys. Okay, fine, you caught me. I'm not great at color theory. I've just been faking it. But I think she turned out pretty well in the end. Ragatha's been starting to become such a complex character recently that I needed something more delicious. And is that angst I smell? I think our girl's gonna abstract soon. That's what I'm trying to say right now. I've seen the new episode and honestly, I can't stop rewatching it. Wanna know why I can't stop rewatching it? Not because of all the angst and stuff, no, because of Bubble. We're not gonna get into Bubble right now, but I love Bubble. There were so many things actually brought to light with Ragatha in the new episode. I just didn't really pay that much attention to it before, but after rewatching it like 5 times, I was able to pick up everything that was actually dropped in that episode. And honestly, it's kind of dark, but this is what Ragatha looks like now, and she's honestly one of my favorite pieces that I've done so far. She's not my favorite in this group. I think you'll figure out who my favorites are. And with that, we go on to Candy Apple Cookie. Yes, I am doing this in backwards order. Did I do this on purpose? No. Am I doing it now? Yes. Am I going to fix it? No, because it's honestly genius of me. But with Candy Apple Cookie, I was so relieved to finally get her color palette down. And by color palette, I mean start off with the line art, because let's be honest, it needed just a bit of work. She mainly needed to work on her legs and her face, but other than that, I didn't have to fix up too much. And bonus, I added some of my own little things into her design. Let's see if you guys can find what I did different. I wanted to give her different kind of eye that I'm normally used to. I don't know if anybody's gonna notice this or has noticed this since I brought it up. I did go for something a little different with her eyes than I normally do in most of my pieces. I gave her this nice thick eyeliner with thick lashes. And honestly, I kind of love that I did this for her because I wanted that white lashes and liner look, but I didn't want it to blend into her actual eye. So I had to brainstorm a little bit. First it ended up just white, and then it ended up red, and then it ended up all red, and then I was like, wait, what if I color pick from her hair and put it on her lashes? Oh, thank you. I'm such a genius. Praise me. Anyways. Oh my god. The wings gave me the most trouble. Out of everything out of this design was the wings. It just killed me. But I kept at it and kept at it and kept at it and kept at it. Oh, hey, look, there's the final design. I love her so much. I even had to give her a little bubble. I even said it in stream because I love that line so much.
Say, if I were to melt you, would I get syrup or jam?
So of course I had to add it in. And with that, here's the final design. I don't have much to say for Ruby in the area of quote-unquote fixing her, because I'm just gonna let the speed paint talk for itself for a minute, and you'll understand why. I literally did nothing to change Ruby. Sure, I gave her some highlights and some shading where I thought she needed shading, but in reality, I don't know what it is. I don't know why I didn't want to quote-unquote fix her, but something about her pose and her face and how she just was already, I didn't change almost anything except for fix some stuff up. But for the background, I made it blue. And if you don't understand why, you'll see soon. But here's our finished rendered, I'm putting that in quotes, rendered Ruby. I hope you like her. finally we circle back to Sapphire. I was so excited to finally get her fixed up because like I mentioned before, her height was just not computing. So I ended up fixing her height along with her elongated face. I didn't mention that before, but her face started to really bother me because I thought it looked longer than it needed to be. I did end up fixing her pose as well, because from the pose that I had her in, it just wasn't computing enough for me, so I had to fix it. Plus, for silhouette purposes, I needed to get something going for that. So when I started fixing up her face and her bangs and her torso, her arms started to give me a little bit of trouble. She started to look really buff in a certain way, which is not what I was going for. I wanted to give her more of a so-called slim look in the shoulders, except for the poofy padding of her dress. So I had to fiddle with that a little bit until I was finally satisfied. And then I started with the hair. The one thing I didn't mention at all in the first go at her was I tried to give her long, almost cloud-like hair, and you can even see me try to give her even more poofy hair while I fixed her line art, but it just wasn't doing it for me. I'm not entirely sure why, but what I found worked best for me is doing it straight more towards the top and then fluffy at the bottom. I thought that just gave her silhouette more of what I wanted for her. And when it came to her outfit, I wanted to change things up a little bit. I gave a little bit of ruffliness to her shoulder pads, and I forgot her gloves in the first rendition, so I added those. But what I mainly changed was her top. I just thought it was a little bit too plain for me, so I ended up adding some lacing to make it more of like a corset top. And just a little Easter egg, I added some ruffles to the top of her corset and the bottom of her sleeves, and if you look close enough, there's roses in there. And here's how she turned out. Now, again, I'm not going to go too deep into Pinkie Pie, and there is a small half of this video that is missing because I don't want to spoil too much, because I do plan on doing redesigns of my redesigns in another video. I hope you all understand. When it came to her shading, I wanted to keep it a little bit minimal because she was already bursting with colors. So I just went with a regular pinkish hue and started going into places that usually needed darker colors. Of course, there were some exceptions, like her ruffles. I color picked and moved it slightly in hue just to get more of a realistic sort of feel for its shading. I wasn't really sure how to shade her corset belt thing. I'm not entirely sure what it's called. I tried my best with that as well. Her hair gave me the most trouble though. I wasn't entirely sure how to shade her hair because of how curly I made it. So I ended up just taking an airbrush and going along the edges and then going into the more smaller spaces that I thought would need shadows. But I think my favorite part of rendering her was her eyes. I don't know what's with me and my eye rendering lately, but it kind of went up a level. I love rendering with a bunch of random colors that I think would fit in my character's eyes. You'll see that a lot in this video. But yeah, that was my finished touch-up / rendering of Pinkie Pie. Also, our last character. You heard it here, folks. I was only able to draw 5 characters for 5 hours. That's basically an hour per character. Whew, if you made it to the end, thank you so much. I hope you like and subscribe and leave a comment down below. Tell me which design or character was your favorite. Also, for the OC video, I promise I did not forget about it. I just ended up finishing this one before I finished that one, and the 28th was the end of the deadline. I am working on it. I have started on it. I've started editing and drawing. So with that, I hope you have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I hope you are all safe and drinking water, and go outside, get some sun, be little sunflowers, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!